that was
Yeah.
that's what I had just done, was that trip when I was writing a lot of the lyrics to this record. So
Cool.
there's definitely
Yeah,
some
I
North Dakota in there.
definitely gonna ask some more about that. Um,
Cool.
Fernando, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I don't, for some
Don't see
reason,
you though.
yeah, I don't know why that's not, okay. I had to reinstall it for some reason. Apologies, everyone.
That's okay. We can do it like without the video or whatever works.
Yeah, I got time. This is my last interview of the day, so I got
Oh, nice.
I got unlimited time. So
Oh, cool. Yeah, do you see does it have like a icon right next to the microphone with the video?
Yeah, it just keeps telling me I might have to quit real quick and then just come right back in because I already have it allowed by the program. It's just telling me to quit and restart.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Sorry, guys.
So how is it? What's DC like right now?
uh it's fine. Um like, what do you mean?
I don't know. Like it seems like everywhere in the US is going through some crazy weather pattern.
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, I think the hurricane is gonna come here. It's really
Yeah.
cold and rainy right now, and it's gonna come up here and just be rainy and shitty for a few days, but we're not gonna get any like bad, it's nothing like what's going on down in Florida or the Carolinas. It's just gonna be rain up here.
Oh, that's good. I know I was
Hello.
that.
How's it
Hey,
going? Nice to
Fernando,
meet
you're
you.
here.
You're here. You made it.
I
Yay.
made it. Yeah. A few technical difficulties, but we got over it. All right.
All right. So, so you, so hey everyone, it's Jenna with the Amnesian Vault, and this is Fernando, aka Number Black. So he's going to join us with interviewing Francis Behringer of Caustic Casanova. So how are you doing, Francis?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing good.
I'm good.
Yeah. So you are about to release Glass Enclosed Nerve Center on October 7th. So first of all, like the album artwork, that is so cool. The birds are on there is so abstract and so colorful. Like, how do you feel that like encapsulates the entire album, and like what song do you feel like it connects with the most on it?
Well, that's a great question. The artwork, so not a lot of people will necessarily pick up on this, but the artwork is like it's the shape of DC, is like all the bones is like the shape of it, of the city. And then the birds are like, it's like a colorful, I'm not sure what it's really, I mean, I had a different idea for what it was supposed to mean, and then it just kind of like the artist took it in his own direction and everything. But part of the idea of it is like the way that Washington D.C. like affects so much of our country and so much of the world, but it's like it's so self-enclosed living here, even though, and this is part of what I was talking about with you with my trip to North Dakota, that's so far away from living in Washington D.C., but some rule that some guy can't use the stream going in his farm. It's like a huge deal that what is being done in Washington D.C. impacts this guy's ability for his cows to do what he really wants to do on his own land or whatever. And that kind of thing just really stuck with me, of like everyone looking in on Washington D.C. And I'd rather have birds than people because I love birds, and there are so many birds on all of our art going back years. So I just thought I'd keep with the bird theme. Plus, all the birds have different meanings in there. So like there's the state bird of North Dakota is on there also. The western bluebird is on the cover.
That is awesome. Yeah, and like you were saying, you have two songs on there. Like you mentioned the second track, Lodestar. Like,
Yeah.
what exactly is the story behind that song, and why is North Dakota? What
Well,
about North Dakota inspired that song?
well, there is a. We went to a lot of the American Indian, Native American sites around on our trip, and I saw someone graffiti on a rock, "Mandan woman never dies," and I just thought that is an amazing opening line for a song. And on the trip about the center of the world, it's about the Mandan people and the Hidatsa people. It's an amazing book. It won the Pulitzer Prize. And just how much of that history and how much of that there's nothing people know less about than like the American Indian tribes of North Dakota. You could there's probably there's so much history in the world that's so written about, and there's stuff like that that hardly anyone knows anything about, and there's this entire rich history of there's so much interest, there's so much interesting stuff, and that kind of like hidden in plain sight history and stories and cultures is just, that kind of thing's fascinating to me. That's another cool thing about going to a place like North Dakota that a lot of people don't go to, is you can learn and experience from a place on a different level if it's not super visited and not a lot of people know about what's going on there. And
Right.
that's sort of what that song is about. That
Okay.
maybe didn't answer your question that well, but
No, it did. It really did. And there's like kind of an industrial vibe at the very beginning of it. And then there's some experimental. I mean, your sound is so diverse and it incorporates so many different elements. Like, what, yeah, what was the inspiration behind like some of your, like, I mean, gosh, now like all this stuff is coming in my mind, but like even you have some symphonic elements like in Bull Moose, Against the Sky.
yeah. Well, the thing that you're referring to, that noise in the beginning of Lodestar, is a lot of people ask about that. It's the Rainbow Machine pedal. It's a particular guitar pedal that just makes these insane noises, and people always, whenever go up and look, and they're like, what is he doing up there? And like, it's just this one really bizarre pedal. So if you want to make that noise, go get the Rainbow Machine by Earthquaker Devices. And yeah, I mean, I think part of the other reason why that beginning of Lodestar has such like an almost industrial feel is partly because Stephanie played with a broken cymbal on the beginning of it, so it's very choked off. And it was kind of a decision that we were like, I don't know, should we do this or not? And she decided to go with the broken cymbal, but it has this very like machine. The drumming in the beginning has this very machine like sound because of that. So there's a little insider knowledge on maybe why that's reminding someone of Nine Inch Nails or something.
Yeah. Fernando, do you have a question ready?
Cuarentena, that song, is that like just strictly about the pandemic and the lives that you were living while you were going through the pandemic and how you were dealing with that? What was the inspiration for that song?
So that song is like the first song that I ever wrote that was like the lyrics all came first, and they just were, I was like deciding to write riffs around lyrics, which I've never ever done before. And it was a lot of that stuff was before the pandemic. And then as we were working on it during the pandemic, because Stephanie and I had worked this song out just as bass and drums for a while, and she didn't really like it, and she thought it was too like dancey or not heavy enough. And I was like, no, it's going to be good. Just stick with me on this. And I never really do that, but for this one I insisted, and I was like, no, we're going to go through with this to the end. And if everyone hates it, then we can just junk it at the end. But it turned out great. And a lot of the lyrics I noticed before the pandemic just seemed to fit thematically with like what was going on then. It was just like a coincidence. And then I was like, this is too weird. Some of these lines are just so perfect for this time that I wrote them before. So then I got rid of everything that wasn't fitting in that theme. So it didn't start that way, but yeah, when I finished it, I just decided to make it the quarantine song. Initially it was going to be Bailar con Tiburón, dancing with a shark. And I don't even remember what that was going to be about, but why I was going to call it that. But yeah,
So
it turned out really cool. And you know, I know every band did some song about the pandemic or the quarantine, so it's not super creative, but hard not to address when you're sitting inside for a year and a half waiting on your album.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah.
So
It's like,
it happened, and you know what? Some really amazing music came out of it.
absolutely, yeah. And
Yeah.
I was just doing an interview with someone else last hour, and I was talking about how our record definitely wouldn't be the way that it is without that time, because we had completed some of it before, and then we didn't really meet as a band for over a year. And I know a lot of bands did like quarantine bubbles where they would stay together and were super creative, and you know, bands like King Buffalo put out 3 records in a year, and that just wasn't in the cards for us. So we had a lot of time to think about what we were going to do, and a lot of time to scrutinize what we had already done. And something like the 22-minute song would never have been what it was without sitting around for a year thinking about all the different ideas, all the different concepts of like what should it be about. It has to be about something. I went through so many drafts and ideas, and I definitely would have gone with something earlier had I had a deadline. But since I felt like this was never ending, I just had time to go through as many, read so many books and go through as many stories as possible before I hit on something that really spoke to me.
Okay.
Right. And as far as you said, you wrote that song before the pandemic, and I guess you wrote all the lyrics to that song. Do you write most of the lyrics?
Yeah, I write all the lyrics.
All the lyrics. Okay.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Oh no, you.
No, I was so like it's a very interesting style that you got, and it seems like you've incorporated like a lot of different styles that you're pulling from. I mean, informing your own style is a difficult thing to do. Do you feel like you after being in a band so long and after 5 albums that you've actually achieved? You've changed since you guys have been together and morphed into something else?
It's definitely the latter. I always think about it like I'm not confident enough in it, and I'm always second guessing everything. So that's sort of a lot of what our sound comes from. Like as far as the ideas that I introduce and the things that come from my ideas initially, like that's why it's all over the place, because I'm not confident enough that I could do like an industrial album or like a stoner rock, like Black Sabbath style album, and it would be good. But I am confident enough that anytime I think of something I'll think of something and be like, that's really good, we should pursue that. Or like someone will play something at practice and I'll think, if we put a dance beat over this, or if we do this kind of thing, I can put a country solo in this part. Like, does anyone ever do that? That's something I would really like as a listener. I think about that kind of stuff all the time. And that's why the style is all over the place. It's just things that strike me as, oh, that's great, no matter what. It's usually heavy music because that's what I like. I think that's what we're all here for. It's usually has something to do with metal in some way, but yeah, that's why it's just all over the place. It's just because, yeah, I couldn't write a Caius album, I don't think, and be sure that it would be not stock and crappy. I just think it has to be all over the place to meet my standards.
Right. And in addition to that question, I guess it's a second part of that question. So how would you describe your music style? Because I mean, it seems like there's different people that have different ideas about what to call your music style,
Yeah.
but how would you describe it?
Well, so whenever this question comes up, I always ask the person, like, who's ever, if it's someone I'm just meeting, like a person in a restaurant or something, I ask them if they like metal. And if they like metal, then it's a different conversation. But if they are not really, then I say, well, we're definitely a heavy metal band. If you don't like metal, then we are that for sure. Because you're not going to come see us blasting our extremely loud amps and not, if there's if people like heavy music, then, or if their favorite band is Emperor or Immortal, then maybe we're not metal to them. But and I love all that stuff, and I love black metal. But I don't know. I the description that's in our like Instagram or whatever, like prog punk psych sludge. I think that covers it. That's 4 words. It's good enough. But that's kind of insider stuff, like you have to know what that means to get what we're doing. If you just listen to Led Zeppelin or whatever, I just say that it's really heavy rock that's super eclectic and all over the place.
Yeah. Going back to now the third track, I'm having problems pronouncing it. A Baylor con Quarantina. Like the video for that is super, super cool. And like I know that you had written underneath it, like Andrew who was like a live member, was playing the part of a sun and moon god trying to get into like human form. So, and there's a lot of other imagery in the video, like you're all playing atop a pyramid, there's snakes, there's owls, there's like all of these different animals and stuff. Like, what are some of the other inspirations behind the video, and what are some of the meanings as well?
Well, we've worked with the guy who did the animation for that for a long time. It's someone I met on MySpace, I think. He lives in Australia, and I've never met him, but we've been doing stuff together for like 15 years. And a lot of times we just know each other, like what we like so well, that a lot of that was just his ideas. And he was just like, I know they'll love crazy animals and I mean, we've done a bunch of like Guatemalan themed stuff because Stephanie's from Guatemala. And so a lot of we've had a bunch of posters of the pyramids in Petén, Guatemala, and featuring like animals that are in Guatemala. So there's like a quetzal, which is the national bird of Guatemala, it's green with a crazy long tail. That's in a lot of our stuff. That's like a symbol of our band. It's on, well, the last 3 albums, it's on the art in some way. I knew that was going to be in there. The guys on the side are the plague doctors, like when there was the bubonic plague in Europe, those guys would wear those huge bird masks and they would put like fruit and like spices and garlic in the nose so that when they were going to deal with the dying people and all the horrible smells, they could not have to smell it. And we had done a sticker and some posters with these cartoon plague doctors. And so they're in there, you know, I don't know. There's not too much to it other than the concept of, I thought it was kind of cool, like to have Andrew lives in Albany, New York, and he doesn't do all of our tours anymore and doesn't, yeah, he just is less involved than he used to be. But I think if life were different, we would be a 4-piece band 20, you know, at all times, but it's just not the way it's worked out. So it's kind of an interesting representation of the band, to have him kind of like being over top of us, like wishing he could be full time with the band, but it's just not working out. But finally getting to fly down and play with us at the end kind of represents our reality. Plus, our record label wanted us to have some imagery of just me, Jake, and Stephanie playing, because so many of our tours recently have just been 3-piece, and people get really confused because all the pictures are 4 and they're always asking where the other guy is. So this video allowed us to get some imagery that's just the 3 of us too, while incorporating that story and all this colorful stuff. So
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
not too, it doesn't have too much thought to it though. It's just kind of wacky and bizarre.
it's a super cool video. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I'm
Really,
glad you like it because I love it too.
I really dig all the colors. I mean, like I paint and such too. So all those vibrant colors in motion, even though animated, kind of just really stands out. I like the video a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, we have really, really colorful stuff, and that's just always been, that's my personal aesthetic, and it's really worked out to our benefit over the years. When you go to shows or festivals where everyone has black t-shirts and all this metal stuff, and then they see this goofy pink and purple and yellow merch stand with all this crazy stuff, and people just go to it, you know. I think just the colorful stuff alone, we outsell a lot of bands just because people are just drawn to looking at something that's not a skull, which again, I like that stuff too. So,
It's different though.
yeah.
Like, for the 5th track, the 22-minute long song of Bull Moose Against the Sky, like it starts off like with a cappella vocals, and it kind of almost has like a, like when I was listening to it, like I like felt like some Dropkick Murphy vibes in there. It's super awesome. And like
That's funny you mentioned that, because that melody from that beginning thing is a Northern Irish like pub song.
Knew it. I totally had that vibe. I felt it right away. That's pretty awesome that it shines.
Yeah,
through.
it's just like this. I saw this thing. They have this thing every summer on the National Mall here in DC called Smithsonian Folkways, and they like highlight a couple cultures of the world. And they had Northern Ireland one year, and they had the people just doing unaccompanied solo singing. And I remember when I bought a CD, and like there were a couple songs that just really stuck out with me. And I don't know, I just had this idea one day I'm going to use that melody for something. And then when we were building a 21-minute song, I thought, well, I don't feel like I've told the whole story enough. So why not make it 22 minutes and add this first minute of like a cappella singing? The whole thing is so ridiculous anyway. If people are going to hate it, I thought, well, let them hate it more. I'll put a cappella singing at the beginning.
It translates really well, I think.
Cool. Well, thank you. I'm glad you guys dug it.
yeah,
Anyway, I think I cut you off, Jenna. What was the end of your question?
um I was gonna say, like, since you answered some of what I was gonna ask, like there's also a lyric in there about a Dakota town. So which town was that?
Oh, that's Medora,
Oh,
because
okay.
the song is about, well, the song is about Theodore Roosevelt and sort of like the 1912 presidential election, like his post presidency, like, and so the first, that a cappella thing is about him saying that it's sort of like after his wife died, he went to North Dakota to like live as a rancher and try to be this like rich kid from New York, trying to be this anonymous ranch hand out in the you know, in the Dakota territory. And he always said that that made him sort of what he was, living for a couple years, like in that really hard life. And so that's sort of the him like having a flashback to his time doing that before he's thrust into 1912. And it's a lot to take in. So I made sure that the lyric sheet for both the CD and the vinyl has a lot of explanation for what's going on, so people can follow it along with sort of like a program to the whole 22-minute song, so it makes sense to people.
It's really cool. Are you plan on playing it live sometime, or just leave it?
We have played it live. We played it live before it came out when we were writing it. So yes, we have definite plans to play it live. All of the hard work of knowing how to play it live is done. So as far as getting the keyboards and the pedal steel, that could be a challenge, but that can also be done. We just have to teach someone all the keyboard parts and get a keyboard player to do it truly the right way, and then get the country guy who did the Howard Parker, who played pedal steel. Stephanie plays country drums in his band sometimes. I don't know how we'll get pedal steel loud enough over, 3 blaring stacks of amps, but I'm sure we can figure it out. And we have definite plans to do a big show where we play the whole thing with all of the parts and all with the pedal steel and the keyboard. So we'll definitely do it.
Nice. Yeah, you got to come to Fargo and play.
Absolutely. We're only missing like 5 states. So, and like I said, we love North Dakota, and we now have a lot of North Dakota references in our music. I mean, it would be insane not to. Is the aquarium still there, that place?
Yes, it is. Yep.
I know that that's a place where people play a lot.
That
There's
Fargo Brewing.
several good bands in Fargo that are on my list to play with. I'm forgetting them now. We have a big list, because we do our own booking, but there's some really good ones.
Wizard Queen
That's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, I'm actually going to see Shotgun Facelift tonight. So.
Ooh, that is an intense band name.
It is. They are an intense band live, that's for sure, and their lyrics are super deep.
What kind of music are they?
It's kind of like melodic, not quite death metal, but it kind of has like some undertones of it. And yeah, it's very groove oriented. They're heavily influenced by Pantera, which a lot of people seem to be now. But they have some like kind of Amon Amarth, Lamb of God vibes to them too.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was reading your bio. Pantera is your favorite band?
Oh, yeah. Hey, on that note, are there any plans on coming out to Colorado at all for any of your shows?
Sure. Where are you located?
I'm not actually just a little northwest of Denver, a place called Arvada, but anywhere in the Denver area, there's a lot of venues out this way. There's a big metal scene out here.
Yeah. Denver's scene is amazing. I mean, it's one of the best in America for sure. I think of like Chicago and Philly are hard to beat, but Denver is right up there. The quality of bands, the amount of good bands, you guys are really blessed with the scene you have there in Denver.
I'm inclined to.
We haven't come through since 2019, but we definitely are 100% doing it in 2023. So we'll be in Denver for sure.
Awesome. I'd love to see your show when you come through. That'd be awesome.
Definitely.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Keep going. Sorry.
I was just on that note, since we're talking about the scene, how does the DC scene relate to the Denver scene? And how do you feel that your sound reflects the Denver or the DC scene as well, or are you guys kind of on an island of your own, so to speak?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, I don't think you can ever be divorced from where you are making music, obviously, but I think a lot of people make a lot of music journalists love to say that like wherever you're from is somehow like, you know, every band in the desert writes certain type of riffs, or like every band from New Orleans like is they're, you know, so they're so sludgy because it's so hot or whatever, you know, like, but then there's just as many bands making sludge in cold climates or black metal in Arizona or whatever. So I don't really, you know, unless somebody volunteers it, like, so you guys know the band Kylesa?
Yeah.
So we used to be on their label and we used to tour, we toured with them, and they would always say like they wanted to be faster and but like they would just, they kind of get space, had no air conditioning. And Savannah with no air conditioning, Savannah, Georgia, that is, I mean, that's as hot as it gets with no air conditioning. So anyway, that to undercut my own point and at least provide some other example. I don't think that anything about DC's particular music sound has impacted us really in any way. But one thing is about DC is that there's a really strong DIY culture here. So from the perspective of the most famous heavy band, you know, from here, Fugazi always did so much stuff on their own, by their own rules, doing it their own way. That is very different from a place like LA or something. That's a lot of like, who do you know? How do you get into this place? Or like, you got to sell tickets to do this, that, or the other thing. So I've always been really inspired by the culture that says most of the shows should be all ages, most of the clubs should be all ages, and you know, do your own thing and do it the way you want to do it without preconceptions of other people's rules. So that part of it is pretty strong here, and that's always something that's inspired us a lot.
Awesome.
But as far as a metal scene, Denver's is way better. Not to say that we don't have great bands here, and Baltimore, Maryland has a phenomenal metal scene, and out in Western Maryland, there's a huge tradition of Stoner and Doom, The Obsessed, Pentagram, all these great bands, and all these older guys that have taught us a lot of stuff and have always believed in us and been a big part of our aesthetic. But specifically community than it is in a place like Denver.
Yeah. Denver does have a good scene. I miss Denver a lot. But Fargo's pretty cool too. So
Yeah, they're both cool cities for sure.
yeah, your song Shrouded Coconut, like speaking of like some of the sludgy bands, like there's some heavy riffs in there. Like, and the name of it is where did that name come from? Like it's such an awesome name.
Well, so it came from this. We were giving each other like I think we were giving each other like black metal nicknames for a while. And Jake was, we were calling him, because he's like more than 10 years younger than me, and he was very young. I mean, now he's been in the band for 2.5 years, 3 years, but he was 22 or 23. And that's very different than being in your mid 30s. We were always sort of calling him the fresh young coconut, because we had bought a coconut, I think, at a Asian market that said fresh young coconut. And we just were calling him that. And then we were calling him the Shrouded Coconut when we were doing our black metal nicknames. And then we weren't announcing that he was in the band, even though we were recording the Shrouded Coconut. You know, it sounds like shredded coconut. It's funny. I don't know. And then that was the nickname, but that was sort of the temporary name for that song for a while. And we just liked it. And then the lyrics are kind of about something to do with willful ignorance. I'll put it that way. And so it kind of, if the coconut, that's your head and you're kind of like, you know, it kind of works. So we were like, you know, let's just keep it. Let's keep the silly name, and everybody loves it. So it's the right decision.
Very cool name.
It is. And I don't think we went over Anubis Rex, the first track off of the album. Like there's some poppy punk feel in it. Like it sounds like a cool song to dance to live and then mosh in the middle of it. Like yeah, and then of course like there's some like harsh elements in it. Like what is some of I know there's like not a lot of time remaining in this, but there's like what were some of the inspirations behind that song as well?
Well, so that song was like I really like happy sounding heavy metal riffs, and it's not necessarily everybody's cup of tea, but I really like that kind of thing. So when I stumble upon a really cool series of riffs that are like heavy but happy and in a major key, I really like that kind of thing. So I put together the beginning of it, and then just, which I've never done before, but I left the whole like middle section open for like the rest of the band to just do what they wanted to do with it. And that was the first thing that we'd written with Jake when we added him as a second guitar player. So I was like, this is the perfect opportunity. Never had two guitar players. Let's do the Thin Lizzy thing. So it's like, you guys do Thin Lizzy in the middle of it with the harmonized guitars. And that was the kind of the instruction. And then they came up with that over a really simple thing. And then I had already written the ending. So it was just, yeah, I wanted to have a Thin Lizzy style section of a song, and that was the biggest inspiration for the way that it all came together. And then we put the country pedal steel guitar on it at the end. Wasn't what I was intending. I wanted the Howard to do it on a different song, but he did it on that song, and we were like, oh my god, like it sounds so awesome with this in here, and it heightens the emotion. And you know, pedal steel is such a beautiful instrument in country, and so few people play it. We're so blessed to have him like do some guest spots, and it sounds like someone weeping. It's like such an intensely emotional instrument, and have it in heavy metal or like hard rock is really rare, and I think it really did something cool there.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is gonna cut it off, but it says like there's less than a minute remaining.